Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Return to Glory, where we are taking the Chicago Bulls of 2025 and trying to restore them to their former glory that they once had in the 90s. Now, I got to be honest with you. The first two episodes, episode 1, we traded a big contract to Nikola Vucevic for a young up-and-coming guy like Zach Edey and a first-round pick from the Memphis Grizzlies, which probably won't be worth much in the long run. And then episode 2, we played a game with our new roster, and Josh Giddey absolutely had a field day against the New Orleans Pelicans. But that was 2 weeks ago. I haven't been able to record in a couple of weeks because I've had things going on. So today what we're going to do is we're going to simulate to catch up to what date it actually is, which the day I'm recording this is Saturday, February 1st. So we're going to simulate up to February 1st. And then the goal of today's video is to trade Zach LaVine's contract. And now, I know if you watched episode 2, I said a couple of different times, Zach LaVine might be safe. But the more that I thought about it, and the more research that I did throughout the previous weeks, I kind of realized, hey, these big contracts that I have, I need to try and offload these big contracts as much as possible, and then be able to have a lot of money and make a big splash in free agency, and maybe try and trade and get some draft picks so that we could possibly hit on a guy like Cooper Flagg. I don't think that is really going to happen, but we're going to see. So what I've done is I got on fanspo.com, and this, if you've never heard of fanspo.com, it's a website where people can go in and they can put in trade packages to see if all of the trade packages would be successful. And so what I've done is I've found 4 different trade options for Zach LaVine that center around the Spurs and the Kings and the Bulls. These are 4 trade options that I think are a little bit realistic, but at the end of the day, this is a video game, so I'm not worried about being perfectly realistic. So let's go ahead and dive into these trades and talk through them and see which one we think we can pull off in the game of 2K. All right, so right here, as you can see on fanspo.com, up here, fanspo.com, we've got the Kings in this trade would be receiving Zach LaVine and Trey Jones. They would also be receiving all of these picks, okay? The Spurs would receive only De'Aaron Fox, and then the Bulls would receive Keldon Johnson, Kevin Huerter, Malachi Branham, and then these picks. Now, again, I don't know if all of these picks are available in the game of 2K, so I like this trade the most of the 4 of them because this is what gives us the most draft capital going forward. It also gives us Keldon Johnson, who's a guy who is under contract, but it's not a huge contract. Kevin Huerter is a guy who could come in and score off the bench, or a guy that we could move in a potential secondary trade here and get rid of that contract. So, but if I could somehow get my own pick back and then tank the rest of the season, that's going to be very, very helpful, because then I would have technically 3 first-round picks if the Portland Trail Blazers don't end up in the lottery, which I kind of foresee them ending up in the lottery, which would mean that I would have 2 first-round picks, which would be super helpful. So this is trade option number 1. Second trade that I found is this trade here that is just Kings and Bulls. And so this one would be sending Zach LaVine to the Kings, and then I would be receiving Malik Monk, Kevin Huerter, Trey Lyles, and a 27 first-round pick and a 29 first-round pick. I like this trade because, again, I think that Kevin Huerter is a guy that could potentially be moved. I get 2 first-round picks out of it, and I don't have to give up anything. I'm not crazy about the idea of Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter's contracts, but at the end of the day, Zach LaVine's making a lot of money, so we got to make up that money somehow. So bringing in contracts like Malik Monk and Kevin Huerter is not the worst thing in the world, especially since I could, turn around and sell those guys off. And you can see right here that it kind of summarizes everything. The cap impact for the Bulls would be $18 million to the positive, which would be huge going into free agency, especially because this is not taking into consideration that I already traded Nikola Vucevic in our previous video. So that contract is already off the books. Then we would get Zach LaVine's contract off the books. So then we would have even more money going into free agency. I don't know that this is the one that I want to pull the trigger on either, but this is option number 2. Now, option number 3, again, involves the Spurs. The Kings would be receiving Zach LaVine, Stephon Castle, and 2 first-round picks from the Spurs. The Spurs would receive Trey Lyles and De'Aaron Fox. And then the Bulls would receive Devin Vassell, who I really, really don't like that contract, but I like Devin Vassell a lot, and I think that he's a guy that could potentially help us in the long run. And I like this one because, again, the Kevin Huerter contract comes in to make up the difference from the Zach LaVine contract, but we also get our pick back right here with the Chicago 2025 first-round pick. I like the trades that involve that pick coming back to us, mostly because I think we're going to be bad the rest of the season, and I think that that pick could end up being pretty good. Now, top 3, probably not, but I think that that pick could be certainly a top 7, top 8 pick. And so I like this trade. Now, the fourth option that we've got here, this one really, really benefits the Kings. The Kings would get a ton of picks. They would get Stephon Castle, they would get Dalen Terry, and they would get Zach LaVine. Tons of picks. I think Zach Collins is a guy that maybe we could go get as our backup center going forward. He's relatively young. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's relatively young. He would be a great backup option to Zach Edey, I think. So I think trade number 4 is the one that I'm going to try to put together inside of 2K. So I'm going to go try to do that, and then I will see you guys in the trade builder. All right, and we simulated all the way from January 14th, which is right here, simulated all the way down to January 31st. And as you can see, we kind of had a little win streak there, followed by a little bit of a losing streak. So we're still sitting right at 500, which is fine, because I think we're about to make a trade that's going to make us worse, and hopefully it gives us our pick back. So I'm going to go ahead and try and put this trade together, and then we'll see what happens. All right, so getting into this this trade builder thing here, obviously I don't have enough space here to make all of the trades that were in the trade that we found online to go from the Spurs to the Kings. However, we have this trade set up here with the Spurs giving us Zach Collins, Trey Jones, and our first-round pick, and then they would give the Kings Stephon Castle, the Charlotte pick, and the Atlanta pick, which were both in that trade that we found. Then the Kings would give the Spurs a 2029 first-round pick. They would give us Kevin Huerter, and they would give the Spurs De'Aaron Fox. Then they would receive, the Kings, would receive Zach LaVine, Dalen Terry, and then Talen Horton-Tucker, who is the fill-in for Torrey Craig, like I mentioned earlier, would be the guy that would go to the Spurs. So I don't know that this is going to get accepted, but we're going to go ahead and try this trade just to see, because this would be giving the Kings Zach LaVine, Dalen Terry, Stephon Castle, and 2 first-round picks for their all-star point guard. Okay, so the Kings say we're already set at small forward, so I'm not sure how this trade really benefits my team. And then the Spurs say we like what we have as far as this trade is concerned. Okay, so that trade is dead. I need to try and figure out some way to get this pick and maybe one of these 2 picks from the Spurs that I may have to cut the Kings out of this. So I'm going to go ahead and work on this a little bit, and then I'll show you what I come up with. All right, so here's what I've come up with here. This matches contract-wise and personnel-wise. This would be giving Zach LaVine, Julian Phillips for Trey Jones and Zach Collins, and then 2 picks, our pick to get back, which I just realized is top 10 protected. So if we tank bad enough, that pick's going to be with us anyway. And then a 2025 Atlanta unprotected pick, which is looking like it could be pretty good. I haven't tried to make this trade yet, so we're going to see if they will accept this. I got a counter offer. That is good news. So they want this 2025 Portland lottery protected pick, which is fine because I think Portland's going to end up in the lottery. They're not even going to have that pick. That's all that they wanted to add to it, was just this first round pick from Portland. I'm fine with that because I'm getting back 2 first round picks in this upcoming draft. So I think this is the deal that we're going to do for Zach LaVine. We're going to get Zach LaVine and Julian Phillips out, and we're going to bring in Tre Jones and Zach Collins. Zach Collins is going to add depth for us at the center position. Tre Jones is going to add not really needed depth at the point guard position, but now we can look to move maybe Lonzo Ball because he is on a big contract that is expiring that he would want an extension, or we could maybe move Josh Giddey. And that deal for Josh Giddey and D'Angelo Russell, I might try and finagle something there. So I'm going to go ahead and accept that trade, and boom, welcome to the squad. Goodbye, Zach LaVine. It's been nice knowing you. You gave us a lot of fun times, but this is what the roster looks like now. Coby White, Josh Giddey, Zach Edey, Ayo Dosunmu, Zach Collins, Jalen Smith, Lonzo, Patrick Williams, Tre Jones, Javon Carter, almost said Jalen Carter, Javon Carter, Talen Horton-Tucker, and then the rest of the guys. All right, I am going to go ahead and try and work up some other trades, and if I find one that I think is worth doing and showing you, then I will show you, but I will be right back. All right, well, I looked for a little bit. I couldn't really find any other trades that make just a ton of sense. I don't really know what our rotation is going to look like at this point, so we're going to go in here and take a look at that. I don't love that Patrick Williams is still here and still starting. I mean, I guess I could trade Patrick Williams or maybe Jalen Smith because he's on a big old contract. I would much rather... Man, I really want Tre Jones to get minutes, but it's so difficult with this many guards. Actually, you know what? Oh, shoot. You know what I just realized? I don't really have a small forward right now. So I'm going to need to go and get me a small forward, or maybe... Do we think that Josh Giddey could play small forward? He's 6'8". I think Josh Giddey could play small forward. I mean, look, we got our pick back, so we want to lose, right? So let's go into here and let's edit Josh Giddey. He's at 82 right now. We're going to make him a small forward, backup point guard. Keep changes. He goes up to an 84. Like, yeah, he gets better as a small forward. That's incredible. So maybe now we look to trade Josh Giddey with his position as a small forward. But first, I'm going to go over here to Coach Game Plan, and I'm going to see, okay, so they got Lonzo starting, which is great. Josh Giddey starting, which is great. Does Tre Jones getting minutes. I love that. I love Tre Jones getting minutes. And I love Talen Horton-Tucker not getting minutes. That is kind of rude, but that's how I feel. Actually, maybe Jalen Smith can stay and we can move like Patrick Williams and then let Jalen Smith play the power forward because he's only 6'9". How tall is Zach Collins? 6'11". Yeah, so actually, pause on all that I just said that we couldn't find anything. We're going to make something happen, and we're getting Patrick Williams off this team. I will be right back showing you what we're doing for Patrick Williams. Okay, so here is a trade that is very interesting to me. I just went into the trade finder for Patrick Williams. Bogey and Clint Capella. Now, again, you might be saying, well, you don't really need Clint Capella. You're right, but he's expiring, and I don't have to bring him back. And Bogey's a bucket. So this one is intriguing to me. Now, I'm giving up a lot of age difference here because Patrick Williams is only 23 years old. But, I mean, 4 years, $72 million for 77 overall. Or, you know what? Maybe we just ride it out with Patrick Williams and we see what the future holds. I think that might be the smart move for the rest of this season. Maybe we run a 10-man rotation. Who does that get involved? Talen Horton-Tucker. I don't love that, but it is what it is. So we're going to run a 10-man rotation. We're going to not play feed the post. We're going to play no preference, shoot at will, some crash, others get back. Yeah, so that's kind of how we're going to run the rest of this season. I am going to... let's take a look at the roster real quick just to kind of wrap up, take a look at this roster, see what we're looking at here. We got Josh Giddey. Moved him to a small forward and his overall went up. Kobe White at the shooting guard, Zach Edey, Ayu Dosunmu, who is a guy that we could potentially trade, but he's been fine for us. Zach Collins, we just brought in from the Spurs. Jalen Smith, Lonzo Ball, Patrick Williams, who we'll see what the future holds for that guy. Trey Jones, who we brought in. I'm very excited about Trey Jones being our backup point guard. And then, the rest of these guys who don't really play. I mean, Taylor Horton-Tucker gets minutes, but it's just because he's a small forward and we need another small forward to get minutes. So that's what we're looking at right now. Let's go take a peek at the future draft picks. We're sitting pretty for the 2025 draft, honestly. We got the Grizzlies pick, which I don't think is going to be very good. Probably like high teens, early 20s, somewhere in that range. Then we've got our pick, which is huge. The fact that we were able to get our pick back, that is massive. And then we have the Hawks first round pick in 2025. So obviously none of the mock drafts are going to be updated by any stretch with these picks being moved around literally today, but I'm going to simulate a few days into the future and see if those mock drafts change. I probably won't show you that, but yeah, that's what we're sitting at. We got some draft capital for 2025. We got some young guys that have come in, and I think things are looking up. It's going to be rough for at least this season in Chicago, but I think things are looking up. All right, and that is going to do it for today's episode of Return to Glory. We didn't really have a whole lot of action. We went through some trade options for our guy Zach LaVine. We ended up getting a trade done that brought in some center depth, some point guard play for the future, and most importantly, it brought us our own Chicago Bulls first round pick in 2025. Now, what that means for the rest of 2025, do we tank and try to get into the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, or do we just kind of simulate out the rest of the season and see where that pick lands? The good news is, though, we do have 2 other first round picks for 2025 as well. So I'm excited about what the future holds. I'm excited for what we've got going forward. And hopefully things are going to work out pretty great. So thanks you guys so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.